Good morning, children. How are you? In the previous classes, we have discussed about different types of plant tissues, such as meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. Right? Permanent tissues are again two types based on the nature of cells and structures and functions. Observe this slide, children. What are the different types of simple permanent tissues? Right. So parenchyma, collenchyma. Okay. So next one is sclerenchyma. Chlorenchyma and arenchyma, they are the divisions of parenchyma, right? So only three different types of simple permanent tissue. One is parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. What about these chlorenchyma and arenchyma? They are the subdivisions of parenchyma, right? These are the simple permanent tissues. The different types of tissues we have discussed till now all are made up of one type of cells, right? On what basis we have classified simple permanent tissues and complex permanent tissues? So based on the nature of cells, structure and function. Here all these simple permanent tissues are made up of only one type of cells. What about the another type of simple permanent tissue, that is called it as complex permanent tissue? What are the two different categories of tissues? Plant tissues and animal tissues. Right. Plant tissues are again consists of simple permanent tissues and complex permanent tissues. See what I have shown this slide. These are the simple permanent tissues. Here label they have given complex permanent tissue, but these are all not a complex permanent tissues. They are the simple permanent tissues. Today I would like to explain. These are the tissues I have discussed in the previous classes, right? Today I would like to explain the one of the important permanent tissue, that is complex permanent tissue. These are the simple permanent tissues made up of only one type of cells, right? What about this slide? Observe carefully. See, these are the complex permanent tissues. What are the difference between the simple permanent and complex permanent, and what are the examples? Simple permanent tissues are made up of only one type of cells, but complex permanent tissues are made up of more than one kind of cells, children. More than one kind of cells. What are complex permanent tissues? What are the examples? Observe carefully. See, there are different types of cells, children. Clear? What about this one? They are the different types of cells. These cells constitute together to form a complex tissue. They are called it as permanent tissues. You know the permanent tissue. How the permanent tissues are origin. They are origin from the meristematic tissues. Then, after knowing the complex tissues, what are the complex permanent tissues? Like simple permanent tissues, parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. What are complex permanent tissues then? Xylem. Observe the spelling, children. Xylem and phloem. These are the examples, or these are the two types of complex permanent tissues. Once again, children, what are complex permanent tissues? Complex permanent tissues are the tissues. They are made up of different kinds of cells. They are made up of different kinds of cells, children. And also, very important, xylem and phloem are the examples of such complex tissues. Name the complex permanent tissue means you supposed to say xylem and phloem. I hope understand, children. Next question arises. What is xylem? What is the main function of xylem? What are the parts of the xylem and phloem? Let us study one by one. Clear? Observe carefully. See here. These are the complex permanent tissue. Which are the complex permanent tissues? Once again, xylem and phloem. So now let us understand what are the parts of the xylem. Xylem consists of Okay, tracheids. Xylem consists of three elements. One is tracheids. Observe carefully, children. Fibers, vessels. What are the parts of the xylem? What are the cells? See, trachea is one type of cell, fiber is one type of cell, and vessels are one type of cells. All these different types of cells to make a xylem. Xylem consists of tracheids, vessels, and fibers. Clear? Xylem is also called it as dead tissue. Why, ma'am, we are call it as dead tissue? Because the tracheids, fibers, vessels, they are dead in nature. Then we can call it as only one type of tissue or cells which are present in the cell xylem, that is called it as xylem parenchyma. Carefully observe, children. Tracheids and vessels are what is the structure of the tracheids and vessels? They are tubular nature. They are tubular nature. They helps in the conduction of water. They helps in the conduction of water. So that we can say that xylem is a water conducting tissue. 100% of questions they are going to ask you what is the water, name the water conducting tissue. What you are going to write? Xylem. Xylem is the water conducting tissue. Water flows from root to the leaf or different part of the body. It will not come back to the again from leaf to the water, right? So that the water moves only through unidirectional. That is called it as ascent of sap. Okay, children. See now, what are xylem? Xylems are the water conducting tissue. What are the parts of the xylem? Xylem, see, observe carefully. Vessels, tracheids, fibers, and xylem parenchyma. Xylem, among four different types of cell, only xylem parenchyma, very important. Xylem parenchyma is on, see up, xylem parenchyma. So this is only helps in the conduction of water. Okay, it is only living cells in the xylem. Why, madam, you are stressing? Because xylem is made up of four different types of cell. One is tracheids, vessels, fibers, parenchyma. All these three are dead in nature. Only xylem parenchyma is living. So it stores the food and also helps in sideway conduction of water. I hope understand, children. So only remember 2-3 points, children. What are the complex permanent tissues? So the complex permanent tissues are two types. One is xylem and phloem. What are xylem? Xylems are the water conducting tissue. What are the elements of xylem? So tracheids, vessels, fibers, parenchyma. Among four different types of cell, xylem parenchyma is living in nature. It stores food and also helps in the conduction of water. Clear? Now we can move on to the another different type of complex permanent tissue, that is called it as here. That is called it as which one? Phloem. Very important, children. What is that, children? Phloem. What are phloems? So it is a type of complex permanent tissue. Okay. So then what are the parts of the phloem? Clear? We understand now. So then xylem means you have to remember one word, water conducting tissue. If anybody asks xylem, what do you know about xylem? It's a water conducting tissue. It's a complex permanent tissue. You're supposed to say. What about phloem? Phloem is the food conducting tissue, children. What is this one? Phloem is the food conducting tissues. Clear? So what are the elements or what are the parts of the phloem? Phloem is made up of four different types of elements. What are those, madam? Sieve tubes. What are those? Sieve tubes. Next one is companion cells, fibers, and phloem parenchyma. Observe carefully, children. So sieve tubes, companion cells, fibers, and one more, phloem parenchyma. Among all four different types of cells, only fiber is dead in nature. Remaining sieve tube, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, they are living in nature. So that we can say that this is a living tissue. What about xylem? Xylem is the dead conducting tissue. Why? Because so except xylem parenchyma, all are dead in nature, but so except fibers in phloem, sieve tube, companion cells and phloem parenchyma, they are in living nature. So that we can say that they are living tissue. Phloem means what you have to remember? It's a food conducting tissue. Clear? Next one is observe carefully. Phloem. Observe the slide here. So phloem is like unlike a xylem, that materials can move in both the direction. Here what about xylem? Water transported from root to the tip of the plant body, that means unidirectional, children. What about phloem? So okay, the food is prepared in the leaf, right? The food has to reach to the root also, stem also, leaf, flower, fruit and all. That means it moves in both the direction. That's why we can say that. So what is that one? Xylem is unidirectional, phloem is bidirectional. Clear? What are the role of the sieve tube? Sieve tubes helps in the conduction of food, children. Okay, next one is observe carefully. Phloem. What is the main role of phloem function? Phloem transport food from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. Except for phloem fibers, phloem cells are living cells. Understand this sentence, children. Except phloem fibers, sieve tubes, companion cells and phloem parenchyma, they are living cells. Clear? So that phloem belongs to living conducting tissue. Xylem belongs to dead water conducting tissue. I hope understand, children. Once again, I would like to recall. So whatever we have learnt in the classes, children, observe carefully. See here, complex. Today my class is complex permanent tissue. Clear? So what are complex permanent tissue? So complex permanent tissues are the tissues, they are made up of different types of cells. Okay, so what are the types of complex permanent tissue? Xylem and phloem. What are the parts of the xylem? You know that. What are the parts of the phloem? What are the functions of the xylem and phloem? You have studied. I hope understand, children. Clear? Next class, I would like to explain animal tissues. Please, my request is you have to draw the diagram in your classwork. Clear? Okay. Thank you, children.